I can also pretty much bet my YouTube career that it will not be banned in the next 6 months. So
if you like cracking packs, we're going to tell you which booster boxes are best to buy for your Commander collection.
I'm Mia, and I love Mystery Booster too.
And I'm Sam, and I'm from the Howling Salt Mine podcast.
We're the Nitpicking Nerds, and today we're sponsored by Card Kingdom, as usual. It's the best place to buy singles and sealed product and really everything, and we have a link that will tell you exactly what we like playing. We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
NERDS
at checkout, you can save 5% of your Real Money tax dollars on your entire order, including...
I love the dual matte sleeves.
I love those too. They have anniversary ones with art and sparkles, so go check them out.
Ooh.
Tell them we sent you. We're also sponsored by Moxfield. You can't guess where it is, and if you said you did, you lied, because
Liar.
you are going to be wrong, because they were going to surprise you, bamboozle you even. And we have a Patreon where you can check out games where we play with people, including, I think we have one with you guys.
Oh yeah, I think so. And, keep the cats fed. It really does help.
We're also sponsored by Showcase Deck Box, the best place to showcase your commander and protect your cards.
I love it for my Carador deck, my favorite commander.
And I love it for my Kaalia deck, my favorite commander. They come in so many different colors, so go check out their site and tell them we sent you.
So today's going to be a really fun one. We're going to be talking about something that we don't usually talk about on the channel, which is like buying booster boxes specifically. We're going to be talking about which booster boxes we think are most worth buying in terms of bolstering your commander collection or building a deck. So there are some notes to get into, some very important ones. If you want specific cards, buy singles. Don't buy booster boxes hoping to pull specific cards. This video is not about value at all, actually. It's really just about the quality of the cards in the set. We're going to assume you got the money to throw at a box. A lot of them are similarly priced. We will tell you the prices, and that might affect your decision. But it's about the quality of the cards. What can I open? How many of the cards in the set, on average, am I going to be able to use for something?
A lot of these sets have very playable cards in one type of archetype or another. It's also, if you want to build a collection of cards to build decks and just love cracking packs, this is for you. I know that we love having kind of like a surplus of cards on hand just in case we get the building itch. We can like kind of go through and be like, this is really playable, and I put it aside so I can build a deck at this time.
Yeah, it's good for that sort of budget, functional cards. We're going to be going through these sets, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clue you in on 3 of the most recent standard sets, and we're going to let you know the percentage of each rarity of card. What percentage of those cards do we think are usable in Commander? That's probably, if we were grading it, somewhere around a C- or better. Cards that they're functional, they're playable, especially maybe in the budget realm, because this is sort of a budget type thing to buy a couple booster boxes and then sort of build decks from there. The other thing you could do with this is you could build an entire Commander deck out of just a sealed box of Magic cards. I've done it before. I highly recommend it as at least a fun experiment to try, because the thing is, if you get bored of the deck after 15 games, you just take it apart, and then you have a booster box worth of cards to do whatever else with.
It's a really fun challenge, and just being able to think outside the box, or in the box in this case, is just really a fun way to use the booster boxes that otherwise you might just crack open the cards, be really excited for the pulls, and then put away.
So we're diving right in. We want to give you something to compare our recommendations to. So before we get to our recommendations for the 3 best sets to buy booster boxes of, we got to have something, we got to have a control group. So these are the 3 most recent standard sets. We're going to start with Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Now you can get a play booster of this set for $140. That's kind of the norm lately with play boosters, as we will see. And we'll just go down commons, uncommons, rares, mythics. We'll start with the commons. We got 19.7% of the commons in Thunder Junction that we think are Commander playable and useful if you open it looking to use them.
Now, 19% might not seem like that much, but there are so many commons, and also these are the things that you're going to be opening up the most. One of the things that you can open up are the desert lands. These are going to be 2 colors, and they also ping your opponents for 1 if you care about committing crimes. It's really important to be able to have that mana fixing when you're building decks, especially if you're going into 2, 3, or 4 color legends, so these are a really nice thing to have at common.
Really good starting point. Definitely something to keep an eye out for when you're buying a box. Like, is there common lands that I'm going to be realistically able to open almost, 1 of each if you open a box? There's also the Varmint that like sacrifices to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Yeah, it's not your number 1 draft pick for that, but these are the cards that are just like these glue cards. They're totally fine. They're perfectly acceptable. It's only like 5 or 10% worse than Haywire Might. And now you don't have to buy a Haywire Might. If you're worried about sourcing all the cards from different places, this is another way to just say, I'm buying a booster box. I'm going to be able to use 60 cards and put a deck together for my 3-color deck.
That really is important to make sure. There's also things like Snakeskin Veil in here, which will give a little bit of protection. I mean, we see this being played in non-budget decks too. It's just a great way to have a little bit of protection in green.
Yeah, I mean, we did do a video, me and Joe, like 3 years ago, 2021. Crimson Vow was the most recent set. Feel free to go watch that video because I think there are some good recommendations in it. But oh boy, have the numbers on these percentages gotten so much better. I remember because I was watching it earlier today, we were hyping up sets that had like a 5% usage rate for commons. And we were like, well, that's pretty good. No, it turns out it can be better, actually. And so even some of these standard sets are better recommendations than some of the best sets before. We're in the golden era of being able to buy a booster box and do something with it, which I'm super happy about. Other cards, the green commons really stand out in this. There's the Bandit that taps for mana. Cool. 2-mana guy that taps for mana. That is a playable card. The Naturalist will mill you 3, get a land back, or make a treasure.
I actually like playing the Naturalist in some of my budget decks, so I think it's a very solid card. But moving on to the uncommons, if you thought 13.9% or 12.9 was good, how about 29% for uncommons? I think that one of the big standout things here is the fact that there are 2-color legends, so you can actually find a commander for your decks at uncommon, and I think there are a lot to choose from. So no matter whether you're trying to build like an Azorius deck or a Rakdos deck, you can find something that fits very well here.
Yeah, this is even though this is a litmus test, I mean, I'm pretty happy with this. We have 10 2-color legends at uncommon. You're going to be able to find something. And there's just some bangers like Return the Favor to fork something and then redirect, kind of like a budget deflecting SWAT. Hollow Marauder is a card that I think is nasty. This thing is really good no matter where you play it, as long as you've got some inclination towards the graveyard. And then Getaway Glamour can just be a nice 2-for-1, can slot into a couple different decks. So there's plenty of cards like this that are very serviceable. They cast a wide net that can go in a decent amount of decks, so I am happy about that.
I really love just in general this set because it's very flexible, and the spree is really good for commander players because of the fact that that has so much modality. But we are going on to rares right now at 71% playability. That is a great number that we love to be at. One of the things in here is more dual lands. There are fast lands in here, and they have just... I really like the fact that not only are they included, they have special art, so they make this big train panorama if you put them all together. There's also Aven Interrupter. That is a flash-in white creature that can plot a spell, and if you do it on a counter spell, it makes it effectively useless.
Yeah, really good in any white deck, I would say. There's plenty of commanders in this set. This is one of the commanderiest sets ever made. And then, like you said, the spree cards, we've got, the Smuggler Surprise and the Insatiable Avarice that just do a lot. And this is definitely a set where you're going to find when the cards are usable, they're usable in a bunch of different decks. This set had a very cube-heavy feel. And now 71%, we'll keep an eye on that for rare percentages. But rares, I think, is one of the sections where we're really going to look at and we're like, how high can we get this? Because commons on commons, I totally understand. We can't max that out. Well, we'll see. We'll see about our recommendations. We can't max that out in most cases. Rares, we're going to try to get as close to 100% as possible. So that is one place I think OTJ lacking a little bit. As for mythics, though, we're pretty good. There's the big score sheet and the mythics. They're at 91%. If you crack a mythic, 2 or 3 per box, whatever it happens to be, maybe more now because they're play boosters, so maybe like 5 or 6. You know that 5 out of those 6 of them are going to be very usable.
I am so happy to see a lot of the mythics here. One of them, Terror of the Peaks, that hasn't been reprinted in a very long time, so if you were looking for one, this is a great place to find it. Another one is Bristly Bill. That has been in high demand in a lot of places nowadays, but being able to put that many counters on your creature, he is a great commander for mono green.
Yeah, there's board wipes. We got Final Showdown, and then some of the big score nonsense like Simulacrum Synthesizer, great in an Artifacts deck. Vaultborn Tyrant, just a big man. And then sort of WAP, the Wealth and Power. I actually forgot what the WAP stood for. It's Wealth and Power, actually. So yeah, pretty good spread there. We're going to keep moving to get more of a litmus test on what the recent sets have given us. That means we're moving to Bloomborough. Again, you can buy a play booster for $140. That's the standard price for play boosters. Commons, we're looking at 13.5% for this, so a little bit worse. You can't expect to be using all that many commons from Bloomborough. It was a little bit of a specific set. A lot of Kindred payoffs, a lot of like cute little stuff, and like cards that target mice. How universally usable are they? Not very.
I felt like this kind of set was pretty big on combat tricks and stuff too, and I thought that was interesting. It's obviously not the greatest for a commander, but there were some good cards for it, 13.5%. One of them is Carrot Cake. That is a good artifact that you can just do a little bit extra with in white. Another one I like is Runaway Together. That bounces a couple creatures, and it's like if you can bounce one of your own, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Cash Grab, I think it's underrated right now. I think I wish everybody who cares about Mill was in on this card because it is pretty strong. I'm going to start putting it in more decks. That's just a nice common to have. Uncommons, we're at 23%. We got stuff like Hop to It for just general token making and going wide. And then some cool Offspring guys. Coruscation Mage comes to mind. Decent removal. There's Consumed by Greed. 23%. Still a little bit lower than OTJ. So, I'm already looking at Bloomborough if OTJ isn't a set that we're going to recommend and is instead one of the 3 most recent sets, and this set is already starting off worse, we'll see where we keep going.
I think it's what you're trying to build in general. If you already have a commander in mind, a Mice Matters commander, if you already had a Mabel or something, maybe you do want this because it's a little bit more specific to your niches. But with rares, 65.7, that is, I'd say, kind of a steep drop off from the last one. But there are some hot fire bangers in here. One of them is Innkeeper's Talent, a card that BZ's been incredibly high on because of its doubling season-esque effect.
I think we all just slept on it, and now it's time for that card to do some work. Caretaker's Talent is another one, and then it's got some really generic strong stuff like Fabled Passage, and then if you're playing any Kindred deck, you just slam 3 Tree City into it, and you're very happy with it. But unfortunately, we're pretty low on rares. Again, these first 3 sets are not our actual recommendations for what to do, but we have to give you something to compare it to. Next up, we got Mythics, and we're back, baby. 100% of the Mythics are usable. We've got all 5 seasons. They're all really strong in their own right, and they don't ask much of you at all. You just play them.
Dragonhawk is so nasty too. Being able to put things into exile and play them, and if you don't play them, you deal damage. I feel like that's just a great commander to pull overall.
Yeah, and then Rottenmouth Viper. I mean, think of a Mythic from Bloomborough. I think it's commander playable. It's very, very simple. And there is also a bonus sheet, the special guests. There's 10 of them, and we think 70% of those are usable. Things like Baleful Strix and Toski. So let's move on to Duskmourn, our third and final control group, standard set, whatever you want to call these. Again, play boosters are 140. Mia, how are we looking at commons?
We are looking at 21%. One of the notable things is there are more dual lands in here. They're the ones that say if someone has 13 or less life, they come in untapped, but even tapped, they're still going to help you fix your colors.
Yeah, that's a pretty real line in the late game. That could just enter untapped versus a lot of these dual lands like the deserts never can. There's also Say Its Name, just a solid little mill spell and recursion thing, good for value. And then Clockwork Percussionist. I like these little small early game plays that can be sacrificed or messed around with for value later. Next up, Uncommons. 24% are usable. There's a bunch of graveyard, spin your wheels, delirium nonsense in this set. I love it. Things like Under the Skin. There's Fear of Imposters is also here as a nice counter spell. And then Withering Torment for some really solid removal. But how about our rares?
Oh, the rares. It's at 60% in our opinion, at least. And I think that's pretty bad considering just the rate that you're going to be opening them. Most of the time they are going to be rares, and having it at a little over half playability is kind of rough. One of the most ones that I've been hearing about, at least, is Twitching Doll because of you.
I just love Twitching Doll.
He's a good mana dork.
Yeah, the Enduring Glimmers are all rock solid, and the Vergelands are here. So that's another, little boost to your mana base. Mythic rares were back 95%. The Overlords are very broadly playable, very good cards. Tyvar's ridiculous. Wandering Rescuer is just going to give you so much value and protect your creatures at the same time.
I'm really excited for Tyvar. I think I'm going to be putting it into my decks, so I want to crack one soon.
And the special guests, 90% of them are good. So that's another bonus. There's really stapley cards like Damnation, Phantasmal Image, Expropriate, really good stuff in there. And you could actually even maybe put these in your deck if you're going to buy a box and you want to build a deck out of it. I would recommend Moxville.com actually, because then you can put all the cards in your collection, take cards from your collection, sort them, tag them, comment on other people's decks saying, I opened a red Overlord of the Burner Villages, whatever his name is.
I love Moxfield. It is great because if you got a special guest printing from Duskmourn, for instance, and you wanted that new art to be represented in your Moxfield list, you can just click and say change the printing, and it will change it for everyone to see.
But that brings us to our 3 sets that we are going to most recommend. I think those other 3 sets, they're fine, but they are not the pinnacle. I think these 3 sets are some of the best sets you could possibly buy in all of Magic the Gathering history in terms of building a collection, getting playable cards out of it, creating decks using the cards for reasons. So we're not going to factor price in a ton, like we said. It's more about the actual contents. But I got to give a little bit of an asterisk to this first one. It's Commander Masters. This set is fantastic for exactly our purposes, as it turns out. But a draft booster is $290, and if you want a set booster, which is slightly spicier, includes and more rares and stuff, it's like $400. But if you have the money and you are trying to build a collection, and you're not trying to like sell it for a profit or something, I think we're still on track here. We will put this as number 3 though, just because it is the most expensive.
I mean, Commander Masters, this is what the set was designed to do. It was designed to give you Commander playable things, and this set, like, that point is driven home with it. It's an amazing set, whether you draft it or play it or you build a deck out of it. It is a bit expensive though, so we are just going to talk about the cards in it. Regarding commons, this has a whopping 60.7% of commons that we think are playable, which is almost as much as the rares in like Duskmourn and Bloomborough, which is a wild rate.
Unbelievable. I'm pretty sure 3 years ago I recommended Zendikar Rising, and I think, just going off memory, it had less than 10% of the commons useful. So this is like at least 6 times more from the card type that you are going to open the most. When you open a booster box, it's like more than 50% commons. And now I know that more than 50% of those cards I can take out and use. And if you open doubles, these are some of like Commander staples. If you open doubles of these cards, oh well, I'm going to use them in multiple decks. We're talking Generous Gift, Counterspell, Dread Return, things like Gutter Snipe even at common, like getting downgrades, and like Elvish Mystic. We're talking fundamental, core, very playable, even at the highest tables, Commander cards at common.
I mean, there is no risk in terms of card quality when opening Commander Masters. It's just a great set overall for playability. Moving on to uncommons, the rate goes even higher because of course it does. 79.2% of cards at uncommon are playable.
Unreal.
One of those things is Kirtar's Wrath, Whirler Rogue, which I have had some great success with overall. The Loyal Cycle, the Loyal Subordinate type cycle, because all of those care about you having a commander, and you're going to be doing that because you want to build a commander deck. And Vandal Blast is that uncommon. We've seen that. We play that all over.
And these are widely playable cards. If you're talking about scrapping a deck together with 1 or 2 booster boxes or the cards you already have on you, plus supplemented by a Commander Masters pack, box, easy. Any of these cards you can just throw into a deck. And we're talking also in terms of like, the vegetables that your deck needs to have or the boxes you need to check. We're opening board wipes at uncommon. There's not a risk of like, oh shoot, I didn't pull one of the 2 rare board wipes in this set. I guess I don't have any for my deck. It's like, no, you're going to pull a Kirtar's Wrath. You're going to pull a Vandal Blast. There's some at every single color except for green, obviously. And it's just, I'm so happy to see it. So again, it is a big cost up front, but if you don't have these cards, if you don't have Generous Gifts and Counterspells and Whirler Rogues in your collection, I think at least it's 100% worth it to jumpstart that and get you brewing multiple decks.
But you mentioned that there are no board wipes at green, but if we go to rares at 89.6% playability, there actually is a board wipe in green. Azuri's Predation is rare printed here, which is amazing. There's also the free spells like the Flawless Maneuvers, the Deflecting Swats, all of those are in here too at rare. Toxic Deluge too. This is cram-packed with board wipes.
And if we're talking about building a deck maybe from a box or building a deck mostly out of this box, there's also a whole cycle of 3-color, very playable, general use legends that you can pull from because you're going to crack at least 2 of them, right? I'm trying to be realistic here. I'm going to crack 2 or 3 or 5 or maybe all 10 if I pull a box.
Honestly, we have cracked a lot of Commander Legends, and it has been incredibly playable, everything we've cracked. And when we've drafted the set, we've actually had very playable, just like, opening draft decks to the point where you could upgrade them into very playable real Commander decks too.
That is the other upside. If you get, 7 other friends together, you can draft this whole box that you open and then take the cards for yourself and build another deck. And that's like sort of like extra value that you grind out of this. And then we're talking mythic rares, literally all of them, 100%. Demonic Tutor, Perforos, Craterhoof, even like Loyal Retainers is still useful. It's just cards you can play anywhere, and they're all slam dunks. Spellseeker too.
Plus, there's new art in Commander Masters too. So overall, if you are trying to build the collection and you have the money and you want to be cracking packs with some friends, Commander Masters is a great way to do that. But if you want to go a little bit cheaper but still has a wild amount of value, Modern Horizons 3. I know this just came out, but we love MH3. There are so many playable things. A play booster is $275, so it is a bit cheaper than Commander Masters, and there are original cards in it too.
Yeah, notably, there is not a ton of value difference between MH3 and Commander Masters, but the thing people were upset with about Commander Masters is that when they bought a box, the value, like money, wasn't as reflected. I think that's not as true with MH3. When you open a box, you're generally pretty happy with the value of the cards in it. They're closer to $275 than if you open Commander Masters. Now, again, we're super stoked about using all the cards from Commander Masters, but that's just something to note. It's maybe why we have MH3 a little higher on our list at number 2. So commons, 31.2%. 1 in 3 commons, give or take, is going to be useful to you. There are some absolute units of commons here, including 10 landscapes that are a little niche. They're only for 3 color decks and above, but it's nice to have them if you're in the market for them.
Basking Brood Scale is also at common, which I can't even believe it's at common because it's just a combo machine.
A Cursed Marauder, absolute staple. Windmill Slam, every black deck that cares about creatures dying. And then Glimpse the Impossible, great red card draw. And I'm sorry, but red card draw just doesn't really exist. This is one of the only 10 ones that even are on planet Earth. And then one of them you can open for sure as a common at MH3. As for uncommons, still pretty solid. We're not reaching Commander Masters numbers, but we're also maybe getting a little bit more bang for our buck. This is 59.5%. And the main talking point that I'll never shut up about until the day I die, MDFCs. There are 20 uncommon MDFCs, and you should play every single one of them in every 1 or 2 color deck possible. And there are also 10 multicolor MDFCs. You should play every one of them in your 2 and 3 color decks that are built of this nature.
I mean, the selling point of these, the single color ones at least, is that they can come in untapped for 3 life. That was the part that was hurting of the past MDFCs because most of them came in tapped minus the mythic ones. But all these at uncommon, they all do a lot. The worst one is just dealing 4 to attacking or blocking creature is still playable, and that these can also come in untapped. And the ones that are multiple colors, I'd say those are still pretty playable too. There's a fight spell, an enchantment. Those are very good. And we love MDFCs because of the versatility, but getting them at uncommon and basically getting 1 per pack that you open for the most part, it just makes your deck so much better.
That's huge for your collection, and it's huge for any commander deck you build from here on out. It's such a great place to start. Marionette Apprentice, we're talking single cards that are just great. That can go in really any black deck. Kozilek's Unsealing's a fun one. I also like Brain Surge because it is card advantage, even if you don't care about the setting up the top card of your deck. But let's look at the rares and start to see why some of the other rates of the standard sets aren't really up to snuff with what we expect, because we're getting 82% out of our rares. We have the Flare Cycle. All 5 of them are great. They're all super useful. They're all really cheap too if you wanted to buy them individually. Fetch lands are here, monocolored lands with utility abilities on them. We can power up our mana base now.
There's also Warren Soul Trader, which again is another combo machine because you can make so many treasures with it. And Fanatic of Ronus. I mean, this is just a really souped up mana dork that can tap for multiple if you have a creature 4 or above, which if you eternalize it will do.
Yeah, we're already looking at combos even just in the random cards we're mentioning, because if you assemble Marionette Apprentice plus Warren Soul Trader, it doesn't even matter what your deck's doing. You're probably just going to win the game at that point. Mythic rares, very high rate. We're still in the sweet spot. I think there's 1 bad mythic rare, so 95.8%. There are Titans, the Eldrazi Titans, Haragast, there's the Recruiter of the Guard, literally everything, except I do want to give a negative shout out to Necrogoyf because he is not very usable. However, you could just sell it for money because it's $17.
Ocelot Pride, there's also the Flipwalkers.
Yeah.
There are just so many options in the mythic rare slot for this. That's why, along with the rest of the cards, which are also very playable, we had to give Modern Horizons 3 at number 2. But number 1 is actually one that is cheaper than both of these, but we love so many of the cards in it. It's Commander Legends 2, Battle for Baldur's Gate. A draft booster is 125 and a set booster is 130. This is higher than we've seen in the past, but it's still a great value for what you're getting.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see these numbers really soon, and they're comparable to the other 2 sets. And this is a set that I'm spending half the money on. This isn't a video about just getting all your value back, but when the numbers are comparable, let's look at the tiebreaker. I can buy 2 of these boxes for the price of 1 of those other boxes in some cases. And I think for this one, unless you're going to draft with your friends, just buy the set booster, right? $5 extra. It's going to give you a lot more of the rares and the mythics that you maybe want for power level reasons. So commons, we're at 56.7%, over half. There's a lot of stuff to be excited about. I just sounded like Mark Zuckerberg there. There's a lot here to be excited about. We have initiative cards that are going to give us the initiative.
There's also backgrounds here. I think backgrounds are super fun, and it just gives you another way to utilize your commander. There's also the impetus cycle. These are the shiny impetuses and all of that. That are enchantments that will do a little bit extra with your creatures.
They also just create some fun play patterns in game, so I do like playing with them. The diamonds, great way to ramp. If you're in 2 colors or more, you're going to be able to pick up 2 or 3 diamonds easily from this set, and that just gives you a nice, solid, and also like reliable 2-mana ramp slot that I think some of the other sets can't give you. Then there is also a cycle of gates. They are just going to be playable in any 2 or more color deck, and it's going to help color fix you at common.
We've drafted a ton of Commander Legends too, and we got so many playable things out of here. And there's just one of my favorite Commander pairings is a background and Commander from Baldur's Gate, which we can get into if we go to Uncommons. And that is at 81.6%. That
Crazy.
is such a high number.
It's crazy. We have the commanders, so that brings the half of backgrounds together, where when I open this set, I am going to be able to put together many, many, many different 2-color combinations of commanders and backgrounds, even if I don't open anything else, assuming I want to pull a commander out of the set. So you have a lot of stuff going there. There's some other like game-ending type cards that I'm excited to see at Uncommon that I think will make the difference when you try to build one of these commander decks, like Githzerai Monk. Tap all my opponent's creatures at the end step, untap with my dudes. That can kill 1 or 2 players easy. Cone of Cold is the same way. It just shuts down blockers and makes for these budget decks to be a little bit more punchy.
And we put Inspiring Tinkering in basically every red deck that can run it, because it's such a good card overall. It gets you a little bit of card advantage and makes you mana, and we usually need that in a ton of it.
It's 1 of 10 red card draw spells. As for rares, we're at 92.2%. We're living the dream. Every rare we open basically is going to be either a useful commander or some great card that we can slam into our deck. There's like Archivist of Ogma, Displacer Kitten, and I also wanted to point out that not every card needs to be like a banger 100% stable. We're happy to play serviceable cards like Astarion's Thirst and Wand of Wonder into these decks that we're building, because we're building up a collection, we're getting started, we're taking a limited amount of resources to build a deck, and I'm happy to play these cards.
I just think Wand of Wonder is a very fun card along with being playable. There's Will in here too, which can help you make like a deck that you might not normally try.
Yeah, that's just a lot of possibilities. That's also what you're going to get. You know, maybe if I crack a box of MH3, I'm going to have like 7 commanders to choose from. If you crack Commander Legends 2, you're literally going to have like 100 possible combinations of commanders to choose from. And lastly, our Mythic Rares, 95.4%. This is the sweet spot. We're just hitting on all of these sets where I'm not going to feel bad when I open a booster. First of all, because over half of the rest of the cards are usable, the commons and uncommons. But because when I open my rare and my multiple rares and my mythics and whatever, I know that like 1 or 2 whiffs, everything else is good. I think Pact Weapon was the only mythic rare that I would not consider very good, generally. That has some niche homes, but if we're talking like, can I put this in a deck? Probably not. But there's Ancient Dragons in this set. There's Karlak. There's Legion Loyalty.
This set is really, really good. I mean, I was so excited when I pulled Ancient Dragons out of this. Karlak, just getting extra combats, and just Legion Loyalty, just being... Myriad is such a fun mechanic, and this set utilizes it so well.
Yeah, so while we do like all 3 of the standard sets that we talked about, I think those rates are better than what we used to get years ago. Like, definitively, you can just watch the other video and compare them. Commander Masters, Modern Horizons 3, Commander Legends 2, Battle for Baldur's Gate. Oh my god, these are fantastic sets for building out your collection, building decks from scratch, building decks with a restriction, whatever you want to do here.
But if you want to see more about what we think about cards, here is a set review on Modern Horizons 3, our second best set in this review.